that either player built their lists with their opponent in mind. I think that specifically Stephane probably assumed that he might see something similar to what Nico's playing, but um, just figured that uh, the field would not be favoring this kind of a deck, and he wouldn't be facing too many of it, if any at all. So it'll be interesting to see how their decks, which you would assume are kind of teched against, what they assume the majority of the field is going to be, like Pidgeotto, of course, Mewtwo and Mew, and Arceus style Gapalkia. Those are the big three, really. Those are the decks that you expect to face. You'll have to see if these decks, which are built with those decks in mind, are going to be able to perform at a high level against each other.
Well, I'm not saying that Stephane didn't do his testing, but if he did not, he may have just said, I'm water, you're fire, and I'll win this one.
That is true. That is always going to be one of the few things in Pokemon that are always going to remain true, right?
Yeah.
If you're water and you're going against fire, odds are you're in pretty good shape.
Prize that Ditto Prism Star. It's pretty unfortunate over on Stephane's side.
Yeah, Ditto Prism Star seems to be kind of a key card for that deck. It does so much work. However, we do get this game underway. Remember, round 5, Stephane Ivanoff against Nico Alabas. This is a tale of two decks.
Yep, we're starting with that type null. Also seeing Professor Oak. He's going to stop on by and give us a few Pokemon to help out on Stephane's side of the board.
Yeah, one of maybe the best supporter you can get on this first turn.
Yeah, it's certainly very helpful.
Now, Professor Oak's setup will allow him to find 3 basic Pokemon, but they have to be different types. That's usually a card that you just don't normally use, right?
It's a Lynette's Net Search, man. That card's great.
Well, I meant in this format.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where the deck just it's so hard to have a deck that can actually reliably use Professor Oak's setup ideally, but Stephane found a way to do it.
Yeah, this is the deck that benefits from it. High hit points and GX Pokemon means that you're probably not going to get much use out of other supporter cards that are similar. So he does play Fighting Wooper so that he's able to use that setup, get the full effect of it, and grab all these Pokemon to help him out.
We do see that Keldeo on the bench as well. Now Nico, though, has the ideal starting Pokemon for himself in Jirachi. We've seen just how powerful that Pokemon is, especially when paired with trainer cards such as the skateboard. Now, Stephane, is he happy with this turn? It looks like he is as he passes the turn over to Nico, and Nico right away plays a Cherish Ball. There's that Ditto Prism Star in his deck. His is not prized.
Must be nice.
Yeah, especially if you're in Stephane's seat, right? Like, Stephane would have loved to have found that.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a great Pokemon to search out here, but Nico is going to have to find himself a Pokemon GX here. Could be looking for Dedenne if his hand isn't that strong, or potentially a Pokemon to start weldering onto.
We've seen that welder engine since the World Championships, and we've seen just how powerful it is. If anything's going to kind of equalize the weakness disadvantage, it's going to be a card like Welder here, which is just going to potentially let you speed through the weakness disadvantage.
Yep, so now it just
There's
really
the
depends.
Dene.
Yeah, no, it looks like Nico isn't too satisfied with his hand, or maybe he can play
But
a
his
few
hand
cards
is so
out.
large. Yeah, there's a Pokemon communication. Of course, he's going to try to play his hand down before using Dede change there.
Interesting. Okay, so he has, I believe that was Victini Prism Star in hand, but he's probably going to bench it in this case because he's grabbing the Vulpix. He had the option to discard some Jirachis with his Dedenne and maybe shuffle back in that Victini Prism with the Pokemon communication. Then that could grab him the Vulpix, but instead it looks like he's confident in playing down this Vulpix. Maybe he believes Stephane has no way to bring this into the active spot anymore with so many people playing Great Catchers.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, like, you kind of have to assume that most people are not going to be playing things like, 4 custom catcher in their list anymore.
Yeah,
when Great Catcher, you can play in much smaller numbers and just have easier access to that catcher effect. Now there's that Dede change. We're going to be seeing him discard his hand and draw 6 new cards here.
Yep, chooses to forego the Reshiram and Charizard GX. He believes that wouldn't be very beneficial against this Keldeo. We've seen some players go very aggressive 6 energies into a Keldeo, but Nico believes in the rest of his non-GX Pokemon enough to where he's just going to toss it and continue on playing. Maybe a Turtonator or some of his other helpful guys will be able to take out this Keldeo in future turns.
We see a Fiery Flint, discard 2 fires to find 4. It's a pretty good trade-off right there, if you ask me.
I would take that deal, yeah.
And I believe I also saw a Heat Ran GX in Nico's hand. So Nico doesn't exactly have a ton of options available to him, especially after discarding that Charizard, right? But there's still Jirachi left to kind of help Nico start to flesh out his hand. But at this point, you have to believe that he's hoping to hit a welder here from the top of his deck.
Absolutely. This would be great. He does have that skateboard in hand as well, so he'd be able to retreat and get an attack for a knockout. Does find that welder. It's that special print from the special event that they had over in Europe, so pretty cool.
Special welder. There we go.
Super special.
And welder, just the perfect card here to find if you're Nico. Nico has yet to play a supporter. He's going to be able to accelerate some energy onto his likely Heat Ran GX. Well,
he can put him anywhere.
Yeah, he can really put him anywhere. Let's see.
I think they're going to end up on Heatran, but you can put him anywhere.
Sure. And you are absolutely right. He goes with the Victini, of course, choosing to hold on to that Heatran. No point in playing it yet. And just draws 3 additional cards, 3 new cards. And I do believe that we saw a switch out of there, which is always good when you have Jirachi in hand or, asleep and active. So just does open up a few more opportunities for you. But instead, Nico does pass the turn after a pretty eventful turn 1, if you ask me. And now Stephane gets to take his second turn of the game. This is where the evolution deck starts to potentially shine, right?
Yeah, this is where Stephane can really go off and get aggressive. If he finds red and blue, he can start to accelerate some energies and perhaps find a way to move those with the Quagsire. I think that's what Nico was afraid of. He believed that if he did knock out this type null, that he'd just be walking straight into a Keldeo attack. So he's going to make Stephane take the first move here and maybe play the counterpart to this and see if he can come out on top just by being a non-GX deck versus a GX attacking Pokemon.
So does Stephane now take the lead here, and does Stephane kind of put the pressure on?
I think Stephane's going to dictate play here. I don't know if he should do it with the Keldeo. Perhaps he can find a different attacker in Silvally to start taking knockouts.
Especially if he has a red and blue in hand, which clearly he can have.
He can get whatever he wants.
Yeah, a tag called, just kind of the jack of all trades, if you will. And sure enough, there's red and blue already being eyed down.
Yep, he's
really
gonna have
Silvally GX is just so powerful.
He's gonna have access to so much here. With the red and blue, he's gonna get some energies in play, get that Silvally. He can start to draw cards with it. It's got a similar ability to Octillery, that Abyssal hand.
Oh, you're going way back.
Not too far back. It's still unexpanded, I guess. But yeah,
showing our age.
It's that disc reload ability that you can use.
Yeah, it allows you to draw until you have 5 cards in hand, right?
Yes.
So basically you like playing cards like Acrobike, cards that like Great Catcher, for example, cards that tend to kind of go negative in your hand, or at most, kind of just stay on par. Because then you get to really take advantage of disc reload, and that's when Silvally really starts to shine. Not only does it have a pretty solid attack, right? Brave Buddies is always going to be pretty powerful, but combine that with a great ability, and you have a pretty underused GX Pokemon, if you ask me.
Yep.
Especially with red and blue now.
Speaking of underused Pokemon, Piplup and Blastoise going in the discard pile. Sad day.
What do you think about Piplup and Blastoise in this matchup?
I think it could be beneficial if you need to accelerate the energies. I just don't know if Stephane is going to put himself in a position where he is going to need that. He's already getting 2 energies down from the Silvally. He has the attachment for the turn if theoretically he draws into that. And he'll be set up with a secondary attacker in this Keldeo. Yeah, he does have the energy there. So it seems like he's in a pretty good spot that he doesn't need to accelerate energies like that.
Yeah, if the game had turned out a little bit differently and maybe he hadn't had access to, to the powerful start that he does, he might potentially go with a different strategy and use the Blastoise. But instead, that Keldeo seems to be doing just fine. And, of course, Silvally is just powerful with its disc reload ability.
So we see Stephane did hit that Chaotic Swell. That's going to be very beneficial for locking out those Giant Hearths that Nico would love to have access to. That's a great way for him to find the energies for Welder. We know he's sitting on a few energies, but eventually that hand runs dry, and you're going to need to find more and more. it's just so difficult to fight through the chaotic swell.
So we see Stephane trying to win in two different fronts. He's not only trying to be aggressive, but he's also trying to disrupt Nico here and just force Nico into awkward, uncomfortable situations. Chaotic Swell is just so good at doing that. Chaotic Swell is just really one of the more powerful stadiums that we've had in a while. And we've had some really good stadiums in the past.
It's such an amazing effect. It's very well created, and it's going to be impactful in tournaments for years to come, honestly. I think it's going to be one of those super beneficial cards for the decks that didn't have a stadium that they typically wanted to play. You just throw that in, and you can help so many matchups.
Yeah, you see power plant decks kind of rely on like Vaba, for example, now because Chaotic Swell is just so powerful.
Yeah, you combine it with a Mars Shadow. It's just like it's so many extra steps that no deck really wants to take, but you have to.
And yeah, you never feel good using Vaba as your supporter for the turn.
Right.
And just discarding a Chaotic Swell. It's not where you want to be if you're playing a game of Pokemon these days, but unfortunately for some decks, they almost have no real choice but to do that now. Can't discount Nico here. Nico is starting to set up his field. Remember, he has a Vulpix in play. That Ninetales can really get pretty dangerous, especially with the fires that we already see in his hand and whatnot. It's a threatening board state if you're Stephane. Stephane is not exactly comfortable yet.
Yeah, we may have jumped the gun. He does only have one fire energy, and he has a giant Hearth in hand, but obviously that's not going to go anywhere.
Where did they all go?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Just a second
Yeah,
ago.
he had 4, and he's attached 3, so I guess he just never found another.
That's how math works, I guess.
Yeah, he has Welder in hand, but
yeah,
is it worth it? Yeah, I mean, I guess you can accelerate 1 energy, maybe get 1 more, and then your Heatran could knock out Silvally with the GX attack, but
it's not a terrible spot. But then you have to figure out about the
just
Keldeo.
walk into a Keldeo, and then you need Victini to combat.
I think maybe you just play the Giant Hearth now. You kind of suck it up, and you realize that Chaotic Swell is gonna.
All right, buddy, you win this round.
But it's a long-term game plan, right? It's one of those. Well, like I'm gonna need some help eventually. There's nothing I can really do about that. So let's just hope the rest of my deck kind of starts to help me out here. But we see that Welder does attach the fire energy onto Vulpix, and now another fire energy comes down. So that's 2 energy out of nowhere here. And there it is. We do see that. It never feels good to do that, but when times are tough, it is what it is. And now we see Dedenne change, another Dede changer after from Nico here, and Ditto hits the Law Zone. Now, will this hand start helping him out? Do we see a Ninetales here?
Yeah, he does have that Ninetales.
There's a Ninetales, yeah.
Don't know if he has enough energies to maybe target down something different.
There's only 1 in hand, right?
Yeah, and it's actually pretty difficult to find another energy. I think he'd have to find Fire Crystal. I'm not even sure if he's playing Fire Crystal.
I guess we'll find out in a second.
I do not see one, yeah. So once these energies are in the discard pile, they're only being taken back out by a Victini attack. So pretty reliant on that. I'm sure he's going to try to get use out of the Victini.
Yeah, and I wonder how many energies there are now. There might be something like 4 at the moment.
In the discard pile?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds pretty fair.
Yeah, it's in that vicinity. So Victini does seem to be potentially going to be threatening to steal a knockout pretty soon, especially after this.
This is of course step 1. He's going to use that Heatran, use that Hot Burn GX attack, knock out this Silvally, and take 2 prize cards. And now he's just going to get himself into a point where maybe he can get enough energies in the discard for where this Victini can easily wipe out this Keldeo.
Does he have a Welder in hand is the question.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. That's when this deck can start to look a little sketchy, especially if Stephane could find another Chaotic Swell perhaps. He could lock out that Giant Hearth from coming into play ever.
Stephane has to be fearing that play out of Nico, but here's the question, though. Can Stephane play around it at all? If he can't, then he kind of just goes like, all right, well, energy on Keldeo, knockout. Let's hope you don't have it. And if Nico doesn't have it and he, so to speak, calls his bluff, then that could just be it right there. That literally could just be the end of it, and Stephane's weakness advantage would take over. However, if we can see a counterplay from Nico here, and we get to see Victini knock out that Keldeo GX, all bets are off.
Right. And this is where I think over the next, well, obviously it's going to have to be the following turn here. Because he's already played a supporter for the turn, we're going to have to see red and blue come into play. That's his main energy accelerating. He's going to have to get 3 energies into play, likely another Keldeo, and has to hope that sticks so that he can continue to have some attackers, because I feel like this Keldeo is on its way out. if Nico has any sort of hand.
Well, Nico's going to need that welder, though, right?
Yeah.
There's no way, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're going to need that. And that's some pressure right there because I think he's already played 2.
This is the really awkward part of playing this deck is evolving. Because when you evolve, you turn off the red and blue option.
Yeah.
So he's, yeah, I like cards. I'm going to do it.
Because he has a type Nolan in play already.
And a Ditto, yeah.
He's probably fine.
He'll figure it out, I'm sure. It's just scary when...
Yeah, you're okay evolving 1.
Yeah.
That second one, though.
Yeah, the Ditto is super beneficial here because if Nico decided to target down the Quagsire and the Ditto wasn't available, then there'd be no way to move energies. And he'd just be attacking a bunch of Silvally, and I feel like Nico's feeling pretty good if he's playing against a Silvally deck.
All right, Stephane, is he finally going to get this knockout? Has been trying to set it, but there it is. Keldeo knocks out that Heatran GX, and all of those fire energies go down with that Heatran. Will Nico have a welder plus 2 fires? It's not easy to do, but if he has it, then he puts himself in a very comfortable, well, let's not say comfortable, but let's say a very reasonable spot against Stephane here.
That could be a bad counter, but I think I saw 8 in the discard pile, so we just need 1 more. Just have that giant hearth.
So there goes that energy.
That's 9.
Yeah, so 9 is 1 more than 8, which is exactly where you want to be against Keldeo. Now, those double fires, all he's missing is the welder right now. Does he have it in hand? And if not, can the Jirachi find it? Those are the questions Nico's asking.
Of course, if Nico doesn't have it in hand already, I did see a few cards that he could potentially get some use out of. He had Cherish Ball and amongst other things in hand. So, obviously, if we see that Cherish Ball come down, maybe he's trying to thin out for Jirachi. If not, we're going to see a welder.
I think Nico just double counted to make sure that there was 9.
I think that's a welder in hand. Yep.
It looks like a welder. It is a welder. There's 2 fires onto the Victini. That means that Keldeo is going to get knocked out, and now Stephane going to be in that awkward spot with no energy in play. And despite having that weakness advantage, he's going to be facing down Nico, who only has 2 prizes remaining at the end of his turn.
Found another welder, too.
Why not?
Oh, that's huge. Yeah, this is exactly what Nico needs. He needs to have an answer to Stephane's potential next answer. Honestly, it's do you have it, do you have it, back and forth. And right now, Nico has it.
Well, and you know what? At this point, it's also like, how does Nico start answering another Keldeo? I'm not really sure. This is going to be a big turn from Nico, but that's kind of it, right? You run yourself out of energy into your discard.
If he didn't have an energy attachment this turn, I would have agreed with you. But now he has attach plus welder onto a Turtonator for 200, which would knock out a Keldeo. So
that's a good point. So we're double counting the energies. Are there 9? Looks like there's 5 so far. Needs 4 more.
I really hope so. That'd be pretty.
There it is. All 9 fires going back into the deck. That's a big knockout out of Nico Alabas against Stephane Ivanoff. He is going to be going down to 2 prizes remaining. Stephane still 3 remaining, facing down a Victini, the almighty Victini. Will Stephane be able to answer?
Oh, do you see what prize card he just grabbed?
The Turtonator, I believe.
That's a pretty good one.
Oh, man. It seemed like he didn't have it available to him, but why not? Why not find it from the prizes?
I mean, as great a player as he is, he probably looked through his deck, said, I have a 50% chance of taking this once I take this knockout. Of course, it's always beneficial for him to take that knockout in that place, but also rewarded with the prize cards.
Now, Stephane. Will Stephane be able to answer Nico's play? Looks like he's eyeing down red and blue. Looks to be discarding a couple of cards for it.
Yep. A little bit of an awkward spot having that Silvally in hand, but surely he'll have another one in the deck. Discarding that type null.
Likely has 1 more in the deck, and sure enough, there it is. And now looking at what few resources he has available to him, how can he craft a victory out of these last remaining resources in his deck? The more important part, really, for Stephane is that he's going to be able to start using Silvally's ability in order to really start finding the last few remaining resources he needs. So, will Nico be able to get the Turtonator with triple fire on it?
Well, I mean, at this point, does Stephane even want to use Keldeo? Maybe he's just happy with the amount of hit points that the Silvally has, and he thinks that there's no way that Nico could at least take the knockout here.
Yeah, potentially. Really interesting situation. Remember, Silvally, 210 hit points.
Just would be just short with that 200 potentially coming from Turtonator.
And you'll still get that knockout onto Victini. You can always choose to use Keldeo later. Can he play around the Turtonator? I mean, this is just a big brain play, right?
I mean, he's trying to set up. He wants to take the knockout on Victini, and then I think he's eyeing up great catcher knockout to Dene. I just don't know which Pokemon's going to get him there. Maybe he has another Piplup and Blastoise to go in. I'm not sure.
I guess we'll find out, but I mean, he's running himself out of resources as well. Like, you see all these Silvalis in play. That's the Ditto gone. That's everything gone. Really, this has got to be what carries him home, right?
Yeah.
There's still another Blastoise left in the deck, more than likely.
He'd also have to accelerate 3 more energies if he wants to get the damage effect.
Is he eyeing down the Blastoise right now?
He could accelerate energies with Blastoise. It also has a huge amount of hit points, so.
Looks like he's eyeing it down. I mean, I really like that choice. It's got, it's the least likely Pokemon to get knocked out.
Yep, if he does also have energies, he could accelerate them onto himself, set up for a bubble launcher.
Right, I mean, even then, like, let's say you don't even have acceleration, like, you're just showing him a 270 hit point Blastoise.
He's a big boy, yeah.
There's Tag Call. Potentially going to find himself a couple more tag teams, but doesn't seem to do so. Like we said, the deck is starting to run out of resources, which just means Stephane's going to try to play his hand down and just draw new cards and just kind of lower his deck.
He's just thinning down now to see if Silvally can find him a beneficial card here. Perhaps wants a switching effect.
How many times can he reload the disc? Looks like at least once more.
All right, looking for, I assume, a switch here. I'm just going to go to the bench and get rid of that stadium card.
All right, well, it looks like we are getting the Blastoise.
Of course, he has Silvally's no retreat effect. He has the secondary Silvally in play.
Oh, okay.
Yep, did not see that art there.
Okay, that cured my confusion right there.
I'm like, hold up, buddy. That's
how did this all happen?
That's an interesting way. Yeah, they're all looking like the same Pokemon back there.
All right, well, either way, we got that answered. We got that figured out, and we now see Blastoise with 4 energies on it. I don't think Stephane's hiding his strategy anymore. I think that all his cards are on the table, both metaphorically and not. And will Nico have an answer to this Blastoise, to these 270 hit points, to this water Pokemon, which deals double damage to pretty much every potential attacker in his deck? And maybe I spoke too soon. Maybe it's not every potential attacker in his deck. As he looked to be finding a Mega Lopunny, but then he just Pokemon communications it back into the deck, finds a Ninetales. Maybe he's going to be discarding his hand soon.
Well, I mean, if he can get that Mega Lopunny, there are 4 GXs in play, so he would be able to do 240. He would just have to have the energies to use that Ninetales ability, bring up the Silvally, and then he could knock that out with the Mega Lopunny. Also needs to have the Welder and the 3 energies in that case,
so
too.
5 energies total?
Yeah, 5 energies and that Lopunny, and he would be able to take the knockout here and close out the game. We'll see if Nico's able to put all these pieces together. He did shuffle in a lot of fire energies into his deck.
But how many ways does he have to draw cards from his deck? I mean, we see that Jirachi's going to be able to potentially find him something, but what can it find him? I mean, does he have a Giant Hearth in hand?
I see 3 energies right now. Welder could draw him into the energies, too.
Okay, so he's considering playing a Jirachi.
He has Switch and 2 Jirachis.
Yeah, he's considering playing a Jirachi here. Maybe he doesn't want to do it yet, but he chooses to do so.
I feel like you're supposed to use the Jirachis and thin out the deck and then use your Welder to draw, but we'll see.
So it looks like Welder first. Welder draws 3 cards and more
board.
Oh,
he drew
there
some
it
fires.
is. I think he just drew 2 fires.
There we go.
Yeah. So, yeah, there is that knockout. Nico finds a way to knock out Stephane's final Pokemon, and that's going to mean victory for Game 1 here for Nico Alabas as he overcomes the fire versus water weakness, and that disadvantage was not enough to keep him down as he's going up 1-0 against maybe one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world, Stephane Ivanoff.
Yep, and even it's 60 plus, so he did plenty of damage, upwards of 300 to take that knockout there. So big knockout from the Megalopunny, able to take this first game here. And now it's going to be up to Stephane to see if he can chain together these Keldeos and maybe put Nico in a more difficult spot. Honestly, Nico wasn't too challenged in that first matchup, found all the welders, and was able to do exactly what he wanted.
It really came down to the Victini having enough fire energies in the discard.
Right.
You know, that's not always going to be the case, right? Like in some cases, you're just not going to have 9 fires in your discard pile conveniently, and you won't be able to knock out the Keldeo fast enough for you to be able to mitigate its damage. He was able to do so in this game, mostly because the game kind of played slow enough for Nico to never really feel too pressured by the Keldeo.
Right.
But if Stephane gets going a little bit faster and kind of pressures him with that Keldeo, he may not give Nico enough time to put enough fires in the discard pile, and that could mean a victory for Stephane. But realistically, Keldeo is just not great against a deck like Nico's, which has so many attackers that can take 2 prizes when you're only taking 1 against them.
Right. When this Fire Welder deck was first played at the World Championships, we saw it very focused on the Reshiram and Charizard. It wasn't playing that many other attackers, and throughout all of the League Cups and whatnot that occurred, we saw a lot of players start to switch over, start to add in all of these tech options. Normally it was just Victini trying to shuffle in, and then you just keep going with welders. But with Turtonator helping you out, there's that Megalopunny as well that you can use. There's a lot of great Pokemon that you can attack with that aren't Charizard.
Yeah, I think people are now realizing that as powerful as Charizard is, fire Pokemon in general are just incredibly powerful.
Yeah,
right
or
now.
anything you can attach fires to. Doesn't matter. We got some Dragon, we got some Colorless.
Cards that we used to think were basically just, you know, cards meant for like draft formats or something along those lines, because they just seem so expensive and so unlikely to have any kind of effect in this super fast metagame.
Right.
We just have to reevaluate after we've seen Welder. I think that having seen Welder, a lot of these cards are just much more powerful than they seem at first glance. And now we get to start Game 2 off between Stephane Ivanoff and Nico Alabas. Remember, Nico won Game 1, and it was a very close, very long Game 1, honestly. We're down to 23 minutes remaining, which means that Stephane's going to have to, if he wants to win this match, find 2 victories within those 24 minutes.
Such a deceptive start from the Stephane. I don't know what's in his hand, but it looks like he doesn't have much. But that's honestly what this deck always does. If he grabs the red and blue, then he gets access to Energy Acceleration, Savali for draw, and all of these great things. But if he just has basic Pokemon, man, this is not pretty.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think that Stephane's hand threatens to be very bad yet, right? Like, until Stephane passes on his second turn, I'm going to still believe that Stephane can really get going here.
That was a lot of fire.
I mean, that's how you get so many fire energies into your discard pile.
Oh, my goodness. And he found the Victini as well.
Why not?
Oh, this is a beautiful start for Nico. He has Victini, Vulpix, Ditto. He's got so many great Pokemon that he has access to now.
I mean, that's what happens when you have so many fire energies in your deck. He just plays so many that he's going to be able to consistently get them into his discard pile.
The only thing he's missing is that Welder is able to find the Heat Factory. Only has 1 energy in hand, though, so would have to rip pretty well off the top and able to get that first turn Welder.
Yeah, it seems pretty unlikely that he'll be able to do that, especially considering the board state and all the fires that went down to the discard pile. But, I mean, yeah, it won't be pretty if he doesn't get to do that. But at the same time, he's getting his engine going. You know, the Heat Factory is going to draw him 3 cards. If it doesn't get countered, then that means it's going to potentially draw him 3 more cards next turn. These are things that Stephane's going to have to answer very soon if he doesn't want Nico to run away with this game.
Right.
There's Turtonator. Into the deck it goes. Pokemon Communication. Been around forever. It's still powerful as ever. Potentially finding him another Jirachi here for Nico. Yeah. Does he have an escape board in hand?
I believe we saw a Jirachi in his hand already. So
that would be interesting.
And I know he has the switching effect.
All right, so Jirachi does get benched. There's that escape board. Huge escape board here as it's going to allow Nico to potentially find himself the answers he needs. Retreats the Jirachi. Promotes the second Jirachi.
Okay, it's just more glare, but he does have plenty of other Pokemon in hand.
All right, time to wish. Is Jirachi's wish going to come true? It looks like it's another Pokemon communication.
Got to dream big. That's not big enough.
Yeah, no kidding. Pokemon communication not exactly as powerful as Welder, but still, this is kind of the stuff you have to do, right? If you're in Nico shoes, you're not always going to have an explosive start. Yeah, you just kind of rely on Welder to bring you back. Now, Sleep Flip does mean that Jirachi wakes up here, and now type Null, Ditto. That's the field for Stephane. Will Acrobike find him something relevant? It looks like a Quagsire is gone and a Wooper comes into hand. There's a Quagsire being evolved from the Ditto, so that's Ditto doing its job. Looks like we have a Silvally potentially. Yep, Silvally with the water energy. So some disc reload action coming to us pretty soon. Maybe not explosive, but it's still good enough to keep you in the game right now.
We're playing nice, fair Pokemon right now. nothing too crazy on either side.
And now Professor Oak potentially setting Stephane up a little bit more. Remember, finds three basic Pokemon, but they have to be different types. So usually you're finding yourself like a Keldeo, a type Null, and maybe a Wooper. But it seems like, okay, so there is also the Marshtomp. Or Marshadow, yeah. I love Marshtomp, man. I really do. I always confuse the Marshadow with the Marshtomp.
there's water Pokemon. There's fighting stuff. Yeah, I can see it.
All right, so Marshadow gets rid of Heat Factory, does its job. Type Null comes down. Type Null is really, really big. All right, and there we go. Stephane, once again, kind of being the aggressor here, forcing Nico to find his welders. We do not have any welders yet from Nico, so Nico's start has been pretty anemic so far. It's up to Nico to really kind of bounce back on this turn. And with so many Jirachis and whatnot, you'd have to believe that at some point he's going to do so. But we've seen stranger things happen before.
Going for Zebstrika. Yeah, okay. So Zebstrika is mainly a tech that he would use in a matchup that's more control-oriented. But with a hand that he has now, probably can get some pretty great use out of Sprint. Draw himself 4 cards. Could potentially see energy come down 4 turn, but I don't really know where he'd want to put it. A lot of these Pokemon don't need it, so he's just going to toss it.
Zebstrika sprinting away. Discarding his entire hand to draw 4 cards. Seems to be a little bit worse than disc reload in this particular case.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
Depends.
you want to get the fires in your discard.
Yeah. He's already got 6 or 7 in there now, so maybe that's not his biggest priority.
Giant Hearth. Finding some fires from the deck here for Nico at the low cost of discarding 1 card.
It's a great deal.
Now, remember, Nico's deck really runs off of these multiple fire energies, wants to use Ninetales' ability to its full potential, wants to get a large welder going, and more importantly, right now at the moment, he wants to thin the deck out for Jirachi. He really wants to start finding these welders. He really needs to start applying pressure back on Stephane before Stephane can really get going with these disc reloads. There's that, there's that Wishing Star. There's a welder. All right. So, welder here.
Where are you going to put these energies, though?
There's the Vulpix.
He has a Heatran in hand as well, so he could just get the Heatran ready soon. Of course, you can always put those energies anywhere and then move them around.
Dedene's a little dangerous, I think. Okay, I prefer Vulpix over Dedenne.
Yeah, anything that isn't getting Great Cutchered is cool.
Yeah. Almost made that play, but decided not to, and luckily puts it onto the Vulpix. And now Jirachi comes down again. That means we're going to see another wish. All right, Jirachi potentially finding himself a switch, I see. Does he have a better option than a switch?
Yeah, he already has a switch in hand. Didn't find any way to get fire. I don't think he was yeah, there was ever even a way to get something.
I'd like a giant hearth if he has one.
Well,
I don't think he does.
He already played one and used it.
Oh, well, I mean, yes, but I meant like for future turns. But well, there is that giant hearth. So
Yeah, I don't know if he wants
I prefer
anything
Welder over
from
giant hearth.
this because he's got Dedenne in hand. Maybe he wants to get some use out of that. But he's really leaving no space to attack with anyone.
Yeah, I don't like the Dedenne there unless you assume your opponent's just gonna get ahead on prizes here again.
Yeah.
Well, buy another prize, I should say.
It certainly looks like Nico's going to have to take the turn off, let one of these Jirachi get knocked out here, and then he'll have some space to get a little more aggressive. He already accelerated a few energy on board, and that's really the trickiest part for Nico is having those energies already in play so that he can hit interesting numbers with his Turtonator, so that he can maybe do 250 damage, take a knockout on a Silvally.
Yeah, like we mentioned earlier, he has so many different attackers that he can really use. It's just a matter of having the energy in play more than anything. And as long as he can use these big energy attacks, he'll be able to start knocking out these GX Pokemon with non-GX Pokemon. And that's kind of where you want to be. But it doesn't seem like things are going to be going as smoothly for him this second game as they did in Game 1. And Stephane could start to really run away with this game. It's kind of up to Silvalli's discs that Silvally keeps reloading here.
Yeah, Silvally disc reloading into one card, which is the Chaotic Swell. That's pretty good.
Yeah, no kidding. Chaotic Swell just so powerful against a deck that relies on Giant Hearth as much as Nico's deck does.
Oh, what an awkward hand. No energy,
Was
no
he not
nothing.
able to? Wow. Wasn't even able to disc reload a second time.
Just drew 6 cards that he couldn't do anything with.
Okay, so now Cherish Ball for Nico. Is this the opening Nico needs to take this game and end the match?
I just don't know what he's supposed to do with it.
Well, I'm not sure Nico knows quite yet either. I think Nico's kind of trying to figure this part out.
No, none of his Pokemon are knocking out Silvally. He'd have to find Victini and use it really early. And he'd have to have all the energies in there to go along with it.
That Chaotic Swell could prove to be pretty...
swell.
Yeah, well, pretty swell. Yeah, no kidding. All right, that's one bad punt for you of the weekend. Pretty early on in the day here.
All right, I'll put it on the board.
Now, Pokemon communication here found by Nico. Really, Nico just needs attackers, right? Like, we're seeing that Turtonator finally hit the field, and that's great. But and there's that Dedenne change. That's a full board here for Nico. So these are things that we now have to think about. How are we going to start putting the pressure back on Stephane?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. He found Fiery Flint and a ton of energies.
Yeah, well, no Welder, though, right?
Yeah, he does have access to Jirachi still. So gonna make sure to fill his hand with all these fire energies. We know there's at least one Welder. I think it's just one Welder left.
I believe there's only one Welder left.
Nah, maybe 2.
Oh, well, maybe the alternate art?
Yeah, I think he's got the
alternate
2
art.
different
Yeah,
arts there.
Yeah.
And a deck of about 9 cards.
Right, yeah, the alternate art Welder is going to be making it pretty likely for Jirachi to find himself a Welder here through a Stellar Wish. Now, that's a lot of fires in hand. That's a lot of fires that are not in the deck. Will the Stellar Wish find him that Welder? It's really going to be the key card here. It'll allow the Turtonator to knock him out. Final card was the Welder, so that's going to mean that that Turtonator is going to be able to start putting some pressure back onto Stephane. Is that enough here?
He actually had the other art in hand, too. Just played the second one. But good on him. He was able to find that. Accelerates the energies onto the Turtonator. He's going to have that extra energy. Finds the other Welder as well, so he has another attack lined up soon. If he could just get both of these into GX Pokemon, we could see this game ending pretty shortly.
All right, well, Turtonator knocking out this Silvally. Stephane kind of being optimistic there, hoping he could put some damage counters on, on Silvally. But instead, down goes Silvally, down goes most of Stephane's energy. And now Nico ties things up at 4 prizes apiece. These Quagsires are just not doing much of anything right now. We see some type nulls.
How many energy are left? Is there a spot where Stephane could just start passing and watch Nico not get a bench opening for a Victini?
I mean, that'd have to be.
I mean,
That's a pretty dangerous play because you really don't know how many energy
what
your
if,
opponent
what
plays.
if I knew that there were 2 fire energies in the prize cards?
Right? Well, at this point, Stephane would have to be, honestly, very optimistic to try to make that play. But if he did, it would end up being potentially a game winner. The problem is, though.
Who's attacking on this board? Is he going to use Vulpix?
Yes.
Like, if you just don't attack, I think you're in a good spot. The problem is you want to win 2 games, so I don't know if he can go that route.
And, well, Stephane also needs to realize that there's so many energies that Nico could potentially play. We've seen some really crazy lists out of these Reshiram and Charizard decks in the past. We've seen 19 fire energies. We've seen it all, man.
The scoop up?
Sure. So I don't think that you just pass, right? Like that's such a dangerous line of play if you have a lot of unknown variables.
I mean, if he passes for 8 turns, I think he could win.
Sure, but does he know that? And,
that's what I'm wondering.
Like, this is a pretty bold play if he were to ever make it.
I mean, he might not get a choice. He hasn't found energies. He might just inadvertently win because of this strategy that he didn't mean to use.
This is a very good point. So, despite what I said, at the same time, he currently can't attack. So
Nico's like, go Zebra.
Well,
I don't think he has enough energies.
Right, there it is.
Just like, what?
We know he has a welder. I mean, how many cards are left in Nico's deck? Like 6?
I think he's down to like 6 or 7. Yeah.
So Nico's got to be running low on resources,
This
low on cards.
It doesn't even take that much time, honestly, to use this strategy as Stephane. It really just depends on if he thinks that's the best route for him.
Could you imagine if like Nico just pulled up a super scoop up or something?
Spicy.
Oh man, out of nowhere.
Of course, can play these energies anywhere on the bench and use Quagsire to wash out.
Okay. Really, at this point, Stephane, like you said, inadvertently could be putting himself in a winning position.
Calculated, 100%. Stephane's amazing. He figured this out.
It's just such a risky line of play, Kyle.
I mean, if he counts like 12 fires, I'd be like, you know what? I think I'm going to win. Yeah, Nico's counting right now for himself, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, it could be in Nico's best interest if he doesn't have a great idea of how much time's left. If he believes he's going to lose the game, to just scoop him up. If he counts too many fires in the discard.
You just pass with a 210 hit point Pokemon? You going to attack?
That's the real question. I guess that's going to answer. And there's a knockout.
Boy.
Stephane. Big knockout there by Stephane. He says, I do not trust that. I mean, they do not have the resources.
Who knows?
Oh, man. Will Victini hit the field now?
Maybe there are enough energies. We'll see. Jirachi's going to look. No, he's only got 2 energies left. Of course, Stephane had no idea. Nico has priced 2 energy cards. But it's just enough energies for this Victini to attack now. So this welder onto the Victini, this is going to be exactly what Nico needed. Yeah.
It really is. So you cannot blame Stephane here. You really can't. This is just a situation where...
It depends. If he knows Nico's list and knows the amount of counts, then you almost can. But it would have to be Nico prizing 0 of these energies and then the Turtonator taking the knockout on a Pokemon like a Silvally. But it would have to be, it'd be so difficult to do. I mean, even then, this doesn't officially like lock in Nico for the victory because he's still in this really weird spot where he's played all his welders and he just has a deck full of fires. I think he had to throw away his Palpad early as well. So he's just going to be playing tickles with him, and Stephane really doesn't have much going on either.
But, I mean, and you're nailing it, right? But at the same time, like, can Stephane do anything right now? Stephane's going to need some help from his deck.
I think Stephane's best option was to pass over and over and over again.
Given his hand, you might be right. Given the fact that he doesn't really have any answers to return knockout, you could potentially be right. But at the same time, I mean, I guess we'll find out. But it's just so hard to assume your opponent's going to have multiple fire energies prized. Could have like 19 fire energies in his list. Unless you know exact counts, like you have to be feeling so uncomfortable in your Stephane. Just uncomfortable no matter what decision you make, whether it's passing or attacking. Yep. You just don't feel confident in your decision.
Well, Stephane has to be using red and blue here.
Sure. And he has a type null. I believe he still has a Sylvala left in his deck.
If not, we do see that Pokemon communication, so he could shuffle it in if it were in hand.
Right? You'd have to knock out the Victini.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And from this point, what attackers does Nico have left?
Substrika.
Exactly. Yeah, we're dealing with whatever randomness is left in his hand still at this point. Certainly still has a really large hand. He's about 13 cards or so, who knows, but it's going to just have to...
We're talking about Nico here, right?
Yeah, Nico's in on a ton of cards.
Yeah, he's got a lot of fires.
Yeah, he certainly does. May have another GX Pokemon in there, but of course, if you're using this
maybe
Keldeo...
Maybe I believe?
Could be.
Maybe he actually discarded with Dedenne.
I don't know.
Either way, basically, the options are low for both of these players. This has just been an awkward game altogether. Neither player really got things going, and now we're seeing some very crucial decision points out of both players. And Nico kind of getting the better end of the deal so far. A pass out of Stephane, though. That means Victini's going to be in play still. There's a Ninetales, of course, with so many fire energies in Nico's deck and now hand. You have to assume that this Ninetales could threaten to start putting these fire energies back into the discard pile here for Victini to take advantage of. There's so many options that are now available to Nico. And the first things first is getting rid of that Chaotic Swell that's just been causing so much chaos here for Nico. And with a handful of a lot of cards, but really not much of anything besides these fires going, I think it's still going to be an unexciting, uneventful turn out of Nico. Like, what do you start powering up?
I think you use your ability, you retreat your Victini to your Zubstrika, and you pass so that you can get more fires in your discard pile.
Sure. And then what do you do?
I mean, what's Jirachi going to do? Just look at 13 fires?
There may be one trainer left in the deck.
Yeah, of course, he does have the switching effect, so maybe he could slow roll the retreat from these Pokemon.
Yeah, with multiple switches in hand, there's really no reason not to make this play. Like, you're just not going to get any use out of it. Well, chooses actually just a not even Stellar Wish, I think.
It's 13 fire energies. What's he going to find?
Was there literally no cards left in his deck?
I think he decked himself down and then used this. I think it's all fires.
And if so,
it certainly could be.
So in that case, of course, you'd probably rather just save the switch and then retreat the Zubstrika whenever necessary.
Oh, goodness. Stephane's just still passing. I don't know if he has a way to use red and blue. Maybe the Sylvala is just not an option at this point.
I have a little glare. That is a Chaotic Swell that just came into play here for Stephane again. We see that Stephane really wants to lock Nico out of being able to discard additional fires. Doesn't want to see a Giant Hearth hit play, and Stephane just attaching an energy onto Keldeo GX and passing. Both of these 4-0 players kind of hoping to go 5-0. Stephane's dream of that happening is pretty much out the window, but he's hoping to salvage a 4-0-1. Nico hoping to go to 5-0 here.
Nico just keeps attaching. He's attaching energies so that if there were ever a knockout, he can just use Heatran and come up and take the knockout. He would, of course, need to have multiple energies for his Ninetales if Keldeo were the main attacker there. But he's setting himself up for kind of a checkmate against Stephane to where you can never take one of these prize cards or else I'm going to come up and take the knockout myself.
Do we know if Nico has a Heatran in hand?
He does, but this is the most risky turn of them all because he has 0 fire energy in hand. He's going to need to have 2 fire energies in order to take the knockout with the Ninetales using the ability. So it would have to be this turn, really. You'd have to have a red-blue combo, and I don't think he has it. So I think this turn, as long as Nico holds energy in hand, he's in a great spot.
He has enough energy in play.
Oh, of course, he also has Zubstrika, so he can just throw everything away and he'll be fine.
Yeah, he has enough energy in play now. He has the Zubstrika available to him to sprint. But at the same time, he needs to have that open bench spot, really. Will Stephane get a knockout going? And if not, then will Nico find a way to get a knockout himself? Really only has Victini as an attacker at the moment.
Can Stephane attack with Quagsire?
That's still kind of a dangerous play, right?
Right? What do you do?
Like, even if you do that, you're just opening yourself up to Ninetales getting the final 2 prizes for Nico. Maybe your new game plan is literally just pass. Hope. No, that's just not.
That was our old game plan.
Yeah, it's just not going to win.
We didn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's almost checkmate at the moment. I really can't come up with a line of play here for Stephane, no matter how you look at it. Heatran's going to eventually come into play, right?
Right.
And if not, then Victini's going to eventually be able to get a knockout going. I mean, has many turns available to him, does Nico.
Yeah,
and if the game doesn't end, then the match ends in Nico's favor anyways.
Retreating over and over again would be beneficial to Nico in order to close. But Stephane needs to find a way to win the game, and his only way to win is going through, and going through lands him in
Do you retreat Jirachi and promote like Dedenne and pass?
I wanted to see the switching and retreating so that more fire energies were in the discard.
I mean, I agree, but I'm saying given the current strategy from Nico, like, you don't mind your opponent knocking out a Dedenne.
I don't think he minds him knocking out anything.
Yeah.
He's like, cool, I'm going to Heatran and be fine.
So it's a slow-paced checkmate, in my opinion. Like, you retreat onto Dedenne and pass, and then the next turn you retreat the Dedenne, get a fire energy into your discard, promote the other Dedenne, and then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're eventually just going to get enough fires into your discard pile that way, and it's still going to save the switches for a big turn if you ever need it. I mean, realistically, Nico just has so many different ways to win this game, and I don't even think he needs to win this game. At this point, Nico may be just thinking, like, okay, you know, you don't knock out anything, you're not going to deck me. And if you do knock out something, I'm going to win. So good luck, Stephane. Like, you're going to need a reset stamp, and I don't think you play it.
Right. He's just going to hope that Nico cannot work his way through this Mega Lopunny.
And Mega Lopunny may be a big Pokemon, but
it's not big enough.
Yeah. Not quite. So now we see Quagsire doing what it does best, making Mega Lopunny and Jigglypuff just a little bit healthier. And there's Jumping Balloon, knockout. There we see that Heatran.
Here we go.
Energy onto the Heatran.
Switch,
and here comes Heatran, and here come the energies onto him. And that's going to mean a knockout for the Heatran. That's going to mean game here for Nico Alabas as he defeats Stephane Ivanoff 2-0. And we see how the fire deck overcame the water weakness, and we saw, more importantly, how the versatility of all of these attackers from Nico really were too much for Stephane's Keldeo and Blastoise to handle.
Yeah, it was so difficult for both these players to maneuver the last pieces of those games. A little more unfortunate for Stephane that he just wasn't able to accelerate energies the way he's normally used to. And over on Nico's side, it wasn't handed to him. He had to work really hard game two, and he found a pretty great spot for himself to get those energies into play and use Victini correctly. And it ends up giving him the victory. It's putting him 5-0 here at the Latin American International Championship.
Wow, what a game, what a match. I think that it showed us a lot about, you know, how this matchup may play out. You see Stephane shaking his head. He seems to be kind of in his own head, wondering, you know, was there a line of play I could have taken differently? Like,
I think he's going to watch back the last 5 minutes and think maybe I should have just passed.
At the same time, you may be cursing your luck at the same time. It really felt like Silvally just had a lot more potential going for it than we really saw. We just never got to see the explosiveness out of this deck, which I'm sure it can have. I'm sure that took B4-0. He's had much better starts than this deck showed on stream.
Yep, but of course, when you're playing a deck like this,